Welcome to the Happy Chat, Thomas.
Hi, hello, good afternoon.
Really nice background you have here. I'm jealous.
I was trying to paint every single brick behind me in a different color. A lot of time and effort.
Yeah, well, I have a vintage Star Wars poster, so it's also not too bad. Yeah, so welcome to Happy Chat. Today we talk about UI flow and RPA, so robotic process automation. But before we get started, please introduce yourself, Thomas.
Right, so hello everyone. I am Tomasz Poszetek, an MVP from Warsaw, Poland. Well, basically I'm working in my everyday job with business processes and business applications. Lately, mostly based on Power Platform, but as well on Index. And well, I've been doing those things for over 10 years. I mean, all around SharePoint, around Microsoft technologies. I'm also writing blog posts and being active in the community. Apparently, my upcoming flights are canceled or the events are postponed, so I won't be moving anyway.
Yeah.
But once the whole situation is over, I'm just looking forward to be again in face-to-face relation with all the community. And I'm also a co-organizer of the conference in Warsaw that is called the SharePoint and Office 365 Saturday Warsaw. So it was planned to take place on 4th of April, but because of all this uncertainty and doubts about what is going to happen tomorrow, we decided to postpone it until to reschedule it on 12th of September. So if you're in Warsaw, then yeah, we would be happy to host you.
Yeah, awesome event, SPS Warsaw. I was there, I think 2 years ago or so. It was really cool, really well organized. Also together with, I think, Marcin and Eddie, your colleagues, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but until we can meet again, so good that we have these opportunities to do online content. So let's do it like this for the time being.
All right.
So let's talk a little bit about RPA. So what is RPA? RPA stands for Robotic Process Automation, right?
That's true. So this technology was created because smart heads realized that there are a lot of processes, a lot of job that is being done in companies that is really repetitive and doesn't really differs between one activity and another, like putting data from SAP to SharePoint or from SharePoint to SAP, or registering some requests where you just have to fill in the form based on the user input. So they are very repetitive. They are likely very similar. And that is something that should be easy to automate so that we don't have a human being, a human agent actually doing this work, but maybe we could have a bot. And this is, I mean, not maybe RPA, but bots is nothing new, because when we were younger, we used to be even writing our own bots, right, to play games for us or to automate some online games to collect goods and swag and things. And actually RPA is something more advanced, because in the end, it is just simulating user behavior on the computer. So
so like user input and things like that, it's simulating.
Right, so it is just clicking areas in the applications that user would click, these copying, pasting data that user would do. And actually it is just mimicking user behavior. There are two kinds of robotic process automation. First one is called attended. That's the most like early one. So this technology was created in the first place, and its purpose is to actually mimic user behavior once a user is logged in on a computer. So with that approach, you would be able to actually see how the mouse cursor is moving across the screen, how it's clicking fields, how it's pasting or writing the data, how it's opening applications. Like you can just grab a popcorn, grab a coffee, sit back, and then really observe how computer is working for you. And there is also a fine hack. So once this attended RPA is working, then your status on Skype or Teams shows you're available. So you can pretend you're working late hours even though you're not.
Oh, nice.
That's a life hack.
Don't tell that to too many consultants, right?
And there is a second kind. It's called an unattended RPA.
Yeah.
The difference between those two is that the unattended expects that the computer on which it should run, there should be no user session, there should be no one logged in, so that this RPA is actually unlocking the machine, logging the user in the background, doing all the job, and then logging out.
So it's a bit like the Ghost in the Shell doing this.
Sort of, but that's meant for the bigger scales. Like if you have hundreds of virtual machines and you'd like to automate a large amount of processes, then you would more likely look at those unattended RPA, because then you can really scale it widely across those machines.
Okay, very interesting. So when we now look at RPA from Microsoft, it's called UI Flow, right?
Yeah,
so
UI flows.
When we compare UI Flow to, let's say, normal flows, what's the main difference?
So just before we jump into UI flows, I just wanted to show you this small Gartner Magic Quadrant. So it has like nearly a year. So it was published May 2019, and it shows those three leaders that are still leaders. So that's the UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere. But today, the number of the RPAs, even Nintex have their own RPA called Nintex RPA, actually, as they acquired Foxtrot. But the number of the leaders is still unchanged. So when you ask today someone about RPA and someone is in a topic, then they will most definitely mention you the Blue Prism, UiPath, or Automation Anywhere. So the majority of differences is around the functionality, the pricing model, and but basically the functionality.
Yeah.
So speaking about the UI flows, that's a thing that was created by Microsoft. This technology went reached general availability. I think it reached in February. So in February, UI flows are general available now. You can pay them. You can buy them under the regular license. I'll talk about licensing maybe in the end. But today, this is only the attended version. The unattended is going to be GA in June. That's as a roadmap, at least. So the main difference between the regular flows and the UI flows is that once you go into Microsoft Power Automate interface, you'll notice that now, apart from the My Flows and Team Flows and the business processes, you have these UI flows, and it still writes and it still reads that it's in preview. So once you go into the UI flows, you are then able to create two kinds of those flows. So the main difference today between the UI flows and all the competitors is that if you would like to query a web page or automate something to be happening inside the web in a web browser, then you have to use the web UI flows. And then if you'd like to automate something on a desktop, you have to use the desktop UI flows. So once you start to create a new UI flow, you can notice that there are two kinds of it. So any from the competitors would simply allow you to automate using the same application, the same flow, both the web page and data from the web page, or actions inside a web page, and in your desktop application. In UI flows, that's something that is still on the roadmap to be merged, to be synchronized, and to become one. Today, you have to build either the first or the second, but then the way you can trigger UI flow and handle its processing is to create a regular flow, so the regular Power Automate, and then trigger them out of this Power Automate. So you can have one action that simply reads a web page, and then a second action that writes to a desktop app. So that's still doable. One more thing is that.
So in order for the desktop obviously to work, you need to have this desktop app installed and needs to run so that it basically can record the action what the user is doing on a desktop application. So without that, it wouldn't work.
The prerequisites to actually start working with UI flows is that for the designing, you only have to install the application. So I just need to check one thing. So for the desktop application and for the web application, you need to install an application that is called the UI flows. That's its name, right? It's just called the UI flows, and then if you are missing it, then the web interface will prompt you to download it and install.
Okay, and, good.
Yeah, and then for creation of the web app UI flows, you need to install Selenium add-on to your browser. So that's Selenium IDE, because this automation of web pages is done via the Selenium add-in. And then for the designing, that's actually everything you really need. Yeah. And then if you want to actually call a UI flow from Power Automate and really use it as a API so that it's really attended and it's doing everything on its own, then you have to download and configure on-premises gateway. And then you need to create a connection to this on-premises gate. I mean, use this on-premises gateway. So that's here under connections. Sorry, not connectors, but connections. I'm always confusing one and another.
Yeah, so too similar.
Yeah, I'm always thinking the first one. So the second thing is then once you have this gateway downloaded and configured and it's really up and running, you must create your connection. And one very important thing is that to define this connection, I guess that for anyone who has already been configuring and connecting to on-premises gateway from Power Automate, it's already obvious. But for those who didn't, you have to provide not your work email address as a username, so not an AAD username, but the local machine username that has also local admin permissions.
Local admin rights, yeah.
Yes, but that's just a local account, not the AAD account. Even if you're logging in with the AAD account.
Okay, makes sense.
And then simply choose the gateway that you have installed and configured.
Yeah. Okay, just out of curiosity, Thomas, so what are currently kind of the limitations? Are you kind of stuck with only Windows applications?
So today, UI flows on the desktop, they're working only with the WPF applications, so like those regular Windows-based interfaces. So they are not yet able to work with the modern apps that you can download from store. But for the majority but basically they're meant to help you automate those legacy old apps, like SAP that you don't have an interface, or like an on-premises CRM or whatever else that you have, or maybe Access database if you're still using that. So that's their main purpose. And also Microsoft is more focusing right now on the desktop RPAs because the web applications most likely have some sort of a REST APIs or any other kind of APIs that you can consume via custom connectors or however from Flow. So that's much more common that you have already an endpoint you can call to read, write data. Whereas with those old applications that you have on premises on your desktop, that's more often happening that there is no interface, no way to access them through any kind of a gateway because they have just no endpoints. And that's why this desktop branch of the UI flows is now very intensively being developed, whereas the online, this Selenium that really makes a lot of people annoyed and frustrated is just somehow like abandoned and put back.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Do you have any like demo to show our your audience?
I obviously have.
Cool.
And right, I had even the web page. So I was first thinking about building about building the UI flow to query web page. So I was thinking about, hey, what can be the scenario? Yeah. And in the first place, I thought, okay, maybe like a currency conversion or the current currency rate, currency rate.
Yeah.
But that is something I think you also have this ability to get through some kind of an interface, so you don't actually maybe need to get it. So I thought, okay, because I don't have really a very vivid idea on what scenario I can cover, then maybe I'll just call current coronavirus statistics just to get the data.
Yeah.
So there is this page called worldometers.info, and now once I launch the recorder, once I start this recording thing, it will open the Selenium. It's in different windows, so that is a Selenium interface.
Yeah.
Then, so that's it. And what I wanted to do actually, maybe I'll just try to somehow.
So now you started the recorder, huh?
Yes, the recorder is already started. So now what I wanted to do, you will see that there are already actions in the background being recorded. So it recorded web page I opened, its window size, where I clicked. And now what I wanted to do is I wanted to grab those values. So there are a lot of commands that you can use from here in the Selenium, because that's not a project from Microsoft. It's much more. So I'll try to get, not to get. That was, how was this thing called? Store value, sorry. So now I need to use the command store value. I want to use the target, so I'll try to get number of total cases. So it reads the destination. Now what I also have to do is to write down the variable in where it's going to be stored. So yeah. And then I can as well go to, there was a page split by the country, but I don't remember where. Oh yeah, view the country, view by country. So here I can click here and say, for example, Poland. And then I can again go and, okay, just this issue about the order, but that's okay. And then what I can do as well, because here this storing the value is getting data out of the web page, and I will be able to use this as a variable inside the flow. But I can as well post from flow to the UI flow to the Selenium. So for that I think that was a query var. Having that configured this way, I will be able to use it as an input parameter. Right. And then I can as well go to, and for example, get again store value to get number of cases, total cases in Poland. Or any other country that I will get. All right, so there is something wrong with that.
Try again.
Yeah. All right, now the selector is working.
Yeah. So you use kind of the UI flow to record the data, and then you put it in a variable, and then that you can hand over to, let's say, a normal flow where you can store the data somewhere in an Office 365 or a SharePoint site or something like this, right. And then you do anything with that.
No, that's correct. That's correct. So now I just terminate it. Now I need to save it. So there is no way now to actually test if that's working. The way I can do that is now to create a new flow.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I can provide a new input that should be like a country, and then call the UI flow.
The one you just created, huh?
The one I just created, and there should be, so you see that two, again, actions. I can run the UI flow for desktop and the one for the browser. So yeah, I will choose Edge Chromium, attended, and there should be coronavirus stats. And right now there is this variable that I can simply use the country from the trigger. Yeah. All right. So that's it. And now, yeah, how can I show you that? Because I think that it will trigger this UI flow on a different monitor. But let me just check it.
Yeah, you can just show maybe then when it does it that you show the values. Yeah.
So let's me Finland. Why not Finland? Maybe not. Just one more thing. Okay. Let me just compose. Yeah, just show the output.
Yeah, of course.
So now in
but I mean the applications or the potential of this technology is amazing. I mean, what you can do with that, just pulling data from somewhere, putting it into your flow, then do something with that. So you can really automate a lot of dull work what you would have done before manually. This will speed up things tremendously, actually.
Yep. So let's try it to make it work.
Yeah, of course. So you added now Finland, and now it should pull the data from there, huh?
And yeah, maybe I'll.
The flow is running.
Flow is running.
Fetching now the data.
You don't see it. Maybe I'll just make a second. No, I mean it is working on the second desktop.
Okay.
So let me do this for a second. I'll share. So anyway, that's the second desktop where it is now recording the data.
Yeah.
So I have here hands just. Now you can see it selected the search. It is inputting this Finland value, and now it should get this total cases value. And it's done.
Cases 46. Yeah.
So now let me just switch back to. I don't know if I'm able to switch just fluently. No, I'm not. So I'll be back now to the screen number 2 again.
Yeah.
So it has run already successfully.
Yeah.
And so that's the data for Finland, right? There were 155 cases. So then this way you can actually get data from one web page and then to put it to another web page or to put it into a desktop application or just to use it in the flow.
Wow. Well, I mean, even though the example is maybe not the most positive one, but but application, if you think about what to do, is like it's amazing. I mean, if you think so, also you could take data from, let's say, an Excel to put it in some other application, right, or in a web page. So because what is nowadays still happening that people are copy pasting data from Excel to some line of business application or something like that.
Right. So what I'm now doing with the Nintex RPA is I'm building a process that is actually getting data out of the form built in Nintex, and then it's putting this data into SAP.
Yeah.
And so I did a small short run with UI flows around. I mean, trying to complete parts of that scenario with UI flows, and well, there is still a long way in front of UI flows to really be there where the top of the competitors are. One of the things that I'm really missing is the possibility to pass on credentials, securely pass credentials. So now you can just pass text variables or number variables, and also the way you can query information is a little bit harder. So there is a lot of work they have to do, but it's really promising. So now speaking about the desktop applications, the second demo that I wanted to show is that I would create, again, let's like imagine we have, for example, I don't know, maybe a form that is being filled by the customer, or we have an invoice that we put the AI on so that it gets the information of the invoice, and then we want to store data from the invoice, like the customer and the total value inside our small CRM. So that is just a small introduction to this scenario, but I will again trigger it by the flow button, because for this is just much faster. In whatever CRM. So I'll just put here a couple of input data like customer name, that will not work. I mean, that would work, but I need to actually then make a conversion from one format to another. So I'll just put it the date. And finally, the value. And then I want to call again a UI flow just to put this data in the CRM application.
Yeah.
And I'll create it from scratch. So now we're going to run the UI flow for desktop. And I'll create a new one.
Good old Contoso.
Yeah, the Contoso. So again, customer. There are just a couple of things you have to configure before you are able to really use it. All right, so now you have to define the input variables, and then you need to go to the launch recorder. I will now again switch to the other screen because for some reason this recorder is just working properly on the main screen. So now once I hit this launch recorder button, what it will do, it will pop up here the UI flows application in now. So there is this UI flows application. So now I need to hit the record and then work with the app as I would normally do as a user. So what I want to do is create a new invoice entry.
Oh, nice user interface.
Yeah, and it's very old application. Right. It customer. Yeah, with this recording on, also the mouse is a little itching.
Yeah,
come on.
it's a bit lagging. Huh?
And last is the amount. And then hit the save. And that's actually it. So there are a couple of things that once we are done, so now I'll switch back to the regular monitor. So now all those steps that I've been doing have been registered along with the screenshot of a place that is actually being clicked or entered by the
Wow.
app. So that, for example, Here I use this Control-A, Control-Delete to get rid of the previous data. But actually, you can as well do it other way. So there is an action called the clear element. I can use this. The only thing I have to do now is to copy this long selector that is here that really tells UI flows where to hit. Yeah. So I'll just use this selector. And there is also this wait for action. It says how much time flow should wait once this specific step is completed. And then also at the end, once you complete the work, it is really good to close the application so that it's not working somewhere in the background. Yeah. So the last thing you should do, I mean, that's somehow recommended, is just to use this action to close it. Also, what we can do is to somehow manipulate the UI. For example, there is this clicking where I was meant to choose a value. I mean, what is the status of the invoice? So now if I add another input variable that is called status and say paid, then I can as well go here into this selector, and it actually is selecting just this part, this control on the WPF application, but then it is trying to click an item that has this long XPath. And now if I replace this invoicing here with the status, as well this one here, I think. Then, gosh, it's never working the way it should. So then these two things should make that now the selector is dynamic as well. So then I can as well go to test it if it works, but I'll just put it inside the flow and trigger it out of the flow. Just save it. It just sometimes takes a little bit of time. Right, so now the flow is triggered. Again, it can be attended or unattended. I'll just need to customer name. And let's say it's going to be paid. Yep. All right, so now once I trigger it, I hope it will really open this application here on this screen. Maybe if I move it here and close it here, it will just remember the position. So let's see. Let me just check it. And that was a date, right? So today is
13, Friday the 13th.
All right. So let's see if it's gonna work really on this screen or on that screen. And so it usually take a little of time, like a minute, actually, or two, to trigger it. Okay, so now application is already opened. Somewhere. Yeah, here.
Oh, here.
Yeah, this screen. So now again, I have here my hands, and the UI flow is actually doing the whole clicking and simulating what I've been doing.
So now it should take away,
yeah. Ready? It just forgot, or maybe I didn't click this new button, or it was somehow omitted.
It's opening. Okay. Yeah,
no,
but we can see.
Yeah, there was this new button and.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it also records the delay, so that if you start recording and then you stop doing this for a long time, then this will also record this delay. So
right. Yeah.
No, there is something really, really bad, but at least this page is working. It somehow mismatched the selectors, but it runs. So maybe
it runs. Yeah, we can see that it works.
Function with my clicking that because I was recording this on a bigger screen and then I moved it to the smaller screen, so maybe it somehow mismatched the location of the fields and confused them. Can't say for sure, but well, anyway, you saw it is working. It's sleep review, so bear in mind sleep review, so it doesn't really need to work fluently and without any error. But I bet that was my mistake. So anyway, this is how it's actually working today.
Cool. Maybe before we close this happy chat, some words about the licensing you wanted to say.
Right. So about licensing. So today there are two plans for the RPA. This is attended and unattended. The attended costs you $40 per user per month, and then so you can create. I mean, the other way around. You can run unlimited number of these flows, of these scenarios. However, you can only run single at a time, which is kind of obvious because you can't do a couple of things as a human on the computer in parallel. So that's the same. I mean, like you can't write two things to the same application at the same time. So with a per user plan, you have that costs $40 per user per month. You can run numbers of those scenarios, but only a single one at a time. And then there is the unattended version that actually allows you to run as many of those flows across devices, and it costs $150 per bot. Now, bot is just a computer, and then you can just run them anywhere you want on how many machines you want. So you can just scale it across the computer. So it's $150, but there is just one catch, because as you saw, to run every UI flow, you need to also create a flow to trigger it. Therefore, and then the UI flows as an action is a premium one. So if you want to trigger UI flow from Flow, then obviously you need to have also a subscription for the flows, for the Power Automate as well. So either per user or per flow, but you have to merge those two costs into one to have a full picture.
Okay. One last question, Thomas. So once the UI flow is running in attendant mode, like if I am, as you see at the computer, can I do something else meanwhile, or do I need to let the computer be and go drink a coffee?
Well, you shouldn't do anything actually, because the mouse is registered as what this movement of mouse is trying to be simulated after you. It's like UI flows know where to click, but if you try to fight with it, so like if you move the mouse away once it's approaching to make a click, then it can either click the different location or can crash because it can't find the target. So the point is that once you trigger the UI flow in a computer, you can just sit and watch, because any kind of interaction can just make this flow run improperly and end up with an error.
Good. Okay, Thomas, awesome. So if people from the audience want to know more about you, where can they find more information about you and the work you're doing?
So the best way to find me and more information about what I'm doing is obviously at the blog post that is here somewhere. I mean, on a slide or via the Twitter. And also my email is just tomasz@porsche-tech.eu. So just add my name and add to the URL of the blog, and you'll get my mail. So these are the most desired ways to contact.
Cool. Hey, thanks a lot for this super interesting, happy chat. Thanks a lot for taking your time, even though it's Friday afternoon and it's Friday the 13th and the world is ending.
Well, hopefully not.
No, I'm joking. So, yeah, thanks a lot for this. Yeah, have a great weekend, Thomas.
Yeah, have a great weekend too. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.